Big Daddy here, and today we're going to take a look at FerenOS. So let's get started. So FerenOS is a desktop that's built off of Linux Mint Cinnamon, and it aims to be a highly customizable desktop, yet usable and familiar. It also comes with a lot of software. So you have a 3.5 gigabyte download. But let's see what we have as far as what we're using. So this is FerenOS 2017.0 Murdoch and Cinnamon 3.2.7. The Linux kernel is 4.40. And this is running on a i7 2600 with 16 gigabytes of RAM and a 500 gigabyte solid state. I guess this is calculating everything. And it has a 960 GTX NVIDIA card in it. So, how much memory is it running? Well, it's running 2 gigabytes. And that's about what most desktops run on my system. From GNOME on down, they're usually between 1.5 and 2 gigabytes, somewhere in that general area. Now, when I did a cold boot, I was at 1 gigabyte. So you take that for what it's worth. All right, so this is not the default look in FerenOS. But I wanted to start out with this because this is what you can make FerenOS look like. You can make it look like an awesome desktop, and that's what is one of the best parts about Feren, because you can take a familiar desktop starting out with and make it anything you want it to be. So what does it have? Well, let's go through the software first. And I don't normally go through software in distro reviews. I usually skim over it. And I probably will do a little bit of skimming here, but I wanted to go through some of it because there is quite a bit installed. So you have the Archive Manager, Atom Text Editor, Calculator, Docky, and this is Docky, this is not Plank, which is, I guess, not much of a difference, but GNOME Maps is installed. Screenshot Tool, Slings Cold, which is a full screen launcher, USB Image Writer and Stick Formatter, which I believe is from Linux Mint, Variety Wallpaper Changer by default, Weather, XPad Sticky Notes, Steam and Play on Linux. I don't remember if I installed Steam. I didn't install Play on Linux, I don't think. But I think I installed Steam. Graphics, I installed GIMP, but you have Krita, Photos, Simple Scan, Variety Slideshow, and XN Retro. For the internet, I installed Firefox and Google Chrome, Thunderbird, and pCloud. So by default, you had Vivaldi as the web browser and Geary as the email. But it also comes with the Zorin web browser manager. So from here, you can install whatever browser you want. If you don't want to use Vivaldi, or you want to uninstall it, you can. You want to install other ones, you can right from here, which is a nice touch to put into the operating system. Office WPS is installed, and I can't remember if I installed LibreOffice Writer. Franz is installed, which is a all-in-one messaging app. I installed Private Internet Access. Under Sound and Video, you had Banshee, Brasero, Cheese, G-Radio or Gradio. I'm not sure how you say that. I guess it's G-Radio. I installed Kdenlive. Media Player, OBS I installed. SM Player I installed. And VLC was the default video player. Wine comes pre-installed. Under Administration, you have the backup tool from Linux Mint. The driver manager for your NVIDIA drivers. Software, the GNOME Software Center, Synaptic Package Manager is installed, and the usual Linux Mint things. It uses the Linux Mint Update Manager. And let's take a look at the welcome screen. So this actually looks like the budgie welcome screen. And it gives you an introduction to what FerenOS is. And if you want to read that, you can, and its objectives. So it's based on Linux Mint, has the Cinnamon desktop, comes with software pre-installed, and is open source. Then you can go into the features. So it tells you about FerenOS and what it's designed to do. And then you have the getting started. So again, it looks like the budgie welcome screen. The first thing you come to is the updates and extras, which you should always check for updates first. You can install the restricted extras from here. The only thing it doesn't do is it doesn't show you if it's installed already. So this is installed already, but it'll just have the install there. It'll tell you it's installed. Under drivers, you have the additional drivers where you can install your NVIDIA card, Wi-Fi drivers, and Intel microcode. Or you can add the repository to get the latest and greatest NVIDIA drivers if you want to do that. Then you move on to the language input and some optional tasks like backups, firewall, and user groups. Next takes you to the customization where you can open up the themer, which we will get to, and the settings. Here shows you your keyboard shortcuts, and if I would have looked at this earlier or actually read it, I would have seen that you can restart Cinnamon by Alt-Control Escape. And I'll thank my man JB for giving me that little hint for Alt F2 and R, restart Cinnamon as well. Okay, so you have a link to the chat room, which is Gitter, I believe. Community, get involved, the software center, and you can check this to get back to the default settings. You have a link to the G+ page, Gitter, and GitHub. So it does have the GNOME Software Center installed, and you can use that. Although you can update from here, you have, if you need to use one or the other, I would think, because for the Linux Mint updater, it's selected on the to install any updates with a level 3 and not install the 4s and 5s. Okay, and that's the way that Linux Mint is set up to install updates. But when you go into the GNOME Software Center, it will show you these updates, and these are these updates, but they are not listed in any level or anything like that. So you have to pick, you know, are you going to use GNOME Software to do the updates, or are you going to use the Linux Mint? You shouldn't use both, because you'll end up installing the 4s and 5s here if you don't want to. Okay, that is the welcome screen, and that will pop up when you first install it. Now, again, this is not the default desktop. This is not what it looks like when you boot in. But this is one of the features of FerenOS, where when you go into the themer and you pick something, it will change the desktop around exactly to what your pick would be. So if you picked a Mac theme, it's going to open up Docky and have it at the bottom. It's going to move the panel to the top. It's not just the themer is not just a theme setter. Theme setter? It doesn't just set themes, okay? It actually changes the desktop around, the layout, and the actual programs that are running. So, for example, in a Windows 10 layout, Docky's not running. So when if I switch from this to Windows 10, Docky will be shut down, and the panel will come down to the bottom, and it will look like Windows 10. Now, along with themer, you still have the themes. So we're going to open up themes, and we're going to open up themer. Okay, so they do different things. So here is the FerenOS default. Okay, so we're going to switch to that. And it does take a second or two to actually switch through to the theme. And that's because it's changing everything around. It's adding different widgets to your desktop. So as you can see, you now have a icon only task manager down on the bar. You have the slingshot menu basically for your menu instead of the SynStark menu. And you have your system tray over on the right. The clock is, I believe, there no matter what theme you pick. Now, the one thing I will say, if you are going to switch around themes like this, it is probably best to switch to a theme and then either restart Cinnamon or reboot your computer, just so that things don't get all goofed up. Because I did a live show and I started changing themes around and I was changing them like nobody's business. And Cinnamon just kept crashing, and it's because, you know, you're trying to change too much too quickly without restarting it. All right, so let's go through these and hopefully we won't crash Cinnamon too badly. All right, so you have the FerenOS Dark. And let me open up a little file manager just to show you what everything looks like. All right, so now we have changed our theme in Themer. Now, if you like this theme, but say you wanted to change something specific, all you would have to do is open up the themes and change. Maybe I don't like this window border. Maybe I prefer something like Numix as a window border. So now I still keep the FerenOS theme all across, but I have a Numix type window border. So it's definitely customizable. All right, then you have the tablet modes. Then you come to the Windows themes. Now, some of these don't exactly work perfectly. I noticed on the Windows 10, for me, for dual monitors, I have a really weird anomaly where it won't allow me to use my second monitor, and it will put any window I open up will be like an inch tall. But most of them work really good. All right, so let's do the Windows 10, and we'll change to that. We'll give it a second or two to conform everything to its liking. And here you have a Windows 10 menu. It changed it actually to the SynStark menu, and to make it look like more of a Windows 10 or Windows 7, a Windows type menu. Okay, so FerenOS, the FerenOS theme is pretty much similar to a Windows 10 layout. Not much of the layout changes, more of the theming changes. But when you get into these, you get into the Windows 8 themes, and it has all the multicolored window borders. You get into the Windows 7, and I have to show you the Aero Windows 7, because if you are a fan of Aero, and I don't like a whole lot about Microsoft or Windows, but I was an Aero fan. I just thought, and I guess it stuck with me because for so long you were on XP, and then you went to Vista, which had some promise as far as your expectations were high, but then it just was lousy, totally lousy. And then you came along Windows 7, and it just got better and better, and the theming on Windows 7 was way better than anything before it. So you kind of got stuck to the, or I did anyway, to the Windows 7 theming. And that is about the closest thing that I have seen yet to emulate a Windows 7 theme. I'm sorry. I mean, the arrow theme is just absolutely brilliant. Now, as far as the animations are concerned, I did change a few of those to raise up and down for minimizing and maximizing. But this arrow theme is pretty much spot on. And the multicolors of the window borders, they just change the border. Everything else stays the same. Then you have a Windows Vista type, and we'll switch to the Vista. And it does emulate Vista so well. I'm sorry. All right. And then you go to Windows XP. And I've seen other XP themes out there. And I've seen other operating systems try to look like Windows XP. But barring this little tiny gap between the top there, this theme is XP dead on. Now, I'm not a big fan of XP themes, but if you are, I mean, you can't get much better than this. And then you have Windows 2000 and below. You can even go to Windows 3.1. I don't know why you would, but you could. All right, then you have the Apple themes, which are Sierra and newer, which is what I actually started out with because the Sierra theme is a beautiful theme. Now, I did change it to a transparent theme, so let's change it to Sierra, just so that you can see what it looks like when it shows up. Now, again, it's not just changing the theme; it's changing the whole layout. So it started docky, put the panel up at the top, gave you the close and minimize over to the left, like it would be on a Mac machine. It just changes not just a color or a window border. It changes a lot of stuff. There's a lot of work that went into this themer, and I gotta give the FerenOS developer a big round of applause because he put a ton of effort into this. Okay, so say Mac is not your theme. So, okay, again, this is the Sierra theme. And what I ended up doing was going in here and changing the desktop theme to fair and transparent to give me the completely transparent look. So whatever you're into, you can pretty much, like if you don't like, say, the Windows 10 desktop, you can change it to whatever you want in here. If you prefer this one just for the desktop, it won't change the window borders, it won't change anything else, it will just change that. So that's where I got the transparent theme. And again, the transparent theming, especially in Cinnamon, is not easily done. If you've ever tried to get a transparent theme on just Linux Mint Cinnamon or Cinnamon in general, it's not always the easiest thing to do, and it's already done for you in here. All right, then you have some Linux themes. So you have Ubuntu, and you can make it look like ambience if you want that to be. And it changes everything to the top, and it actually puts a side panel on. So with all the people that have, with the news about Unity and GNOME and everything, you can make your Linux Mint Cinnamon or FerenOS look like, or not maybe look like, but resemble Unity. All right. Then you have some popular Linux themes like Numix, Numix Frost, Arc, Adapta, which is a great theme, and Eusebience. You also have the Linux Mint themes in here, which I think is a better dark theme than the Windows 10, because the Windows 10 dark theme is really, really dark. Really dark. And this is more of a darkish type thing. So once it completely applies, it looks really good. And I'm not a big fan of green, okay? I've already said that in the past. But if you're a fan of green, this is a great theme. It also takes the menu and makes it look like the cinnamon menu. If you're a fan of the cinnamon menu, which I am not, but if that's what you're into, there you go. The last one would be FerenOS. And I have never had the pleasure of running FerenOS. But if you have, and you like it, it kind of resembles the way FerenOS is set up with the launcher at the left. And it's actually a split panel. So there is no panel right here. You have the panel over to the right and a panel over to the left. Now that is the themer. And again, you can come in here and change specifically each one of these or just one of these. And it just makes it so customizable. So what's the verdict on FerenOS? Well, there are, minor issues. Like, for example, when you do a layout and you have everything set up and you try a different layout, you can't get back to your settings the way you had them. You have to reset them all because it just resets the one to the default of whatever that is set at. So if you switch from FerenOS to Windows 10 and you have already customized the FerenOS one, if you go to switch back, it'll just put the default FerenOS theme on. That is a minor issue, okay? It's not no deal breaker. Overall, when I don't try to change themes every 5 seconds, but as you can see, I was able to go through all of those themes and Cinnamon did not crash at all, which was way better than what I experienced in the live video that I did. But all in all, it runs smooth. There are one or two issues where certain programs open up slower than others. Like, for example, the file manager will open up really fast. I have a specific problem with Thunderbird. It takes about 4 or 5 seconds for Thunderbird to open. Not sure what's going on with that. Maybe it's the version, I don't know. But overall, it's been running smooth. It's very customizable and you can make it beautiful. You can make it what you want it to be. So I think Feren is on to something and it just keeps getting better and better. Each time that he has released an ISO, it's gotten better and better and better. And I think once it's updated, and I'm not sure of the process of how it's going to be updated, but once Feren or Linux Mint actually goes to 3.4 with the separate processes, I think that will allow it to crash even less than it does now, which, as you can see, it hasn't crashed yet. So I think it's going to be, I think it has promise. Now, you may not be a Cinnamon fan, but I think that it's worth a look. If you've used Cinnamon in the past and you want to try it out again, I might suggest that you install this over Linux Mint. The only thing that I will tell you that if you do download the ISO, you must treat the ISO before you actually burn it to a DVD or burn it to a USB. Other than that, I think FerenOS is onto something. What do you think? You going to give it a try? Well, let me know in the comments below, and we'll talk about it. But until next time, Big Daddy out.